Now, former Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan has warned that electoral manipulation remains one of the biggest threats to democracy in Africa. He spoke at a democracy dialogue hosted by his foundation in Accra, Ghana. He stated that when democracy fails to meet people's expectations, it can breed desperation and pave the way for authoritarian rule. He urged African leaders to rethink their democratic systems to better serve their people. The former president also emphasized that a major problem is the manipulation of electoral processes by those seeking to remain in power by any means necessary. Well, we'll now take some perspectives into this and related issues in the polity, including the statement by former President Olusegun Obasanjo on alleged pushes for a third term in office. Former senior special assistant to the president on Niger Delta Affairs, Senator Enang, joins us now. Thank you so much, Senator Enang. If you can hear me, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Let's just go right to it. The former president, Goodluck Jonathan, recently argued that if Africa had proper elections, a leader who fails to perform would be voted out. Now, do you believe that in Nigeria's current political climate, poor performing leaders can indeed be voted out at the polls? And what would it take to achieve a system where the ballot box truly holds leaders accountable?
Thank you very much. I believe that former President Jonathan is right. And if we have proper elections, poor and low-performing leaders will be voted out. And I want to commend that in Nigeria, we have proper elections. The electoral law is perfect and very perfect. The electoral management bodies is perfectly constituted. A few of the matters that are constituting challenge to the electoral system is being discussed and is being worked on at the Constitution Review Committee and at the Electoral Act Review team. Fortunately, I am involved by the National Assembly in the Constitution Review process and consulting also for the working for the on the Electoral Act, the review. And every matter, including what is called the Electoral Offences Bill, is being considered. All these are intended to make sure that when voters vote, their vote counts. And when voters vote, any person that commits offense in the course of the voting process or trying to disrupt voting or falsifies electoral vote, vote that has been cast, or in any manner commits any offense, whether a security officer, whether an electoral officer, whether a voter, or whether a government official is held accountable under that law. Yes, there is that law in existence, but the question now is, should they excise it and give it a different body? So elections count in Nigeria, and voters, public officers who perform wrongly can be voted out. I take example in the last election. that there are areas which the APC took for granted, and the people had some issues in those areas and wanted to vote out the APC in that area. I am APC, and so I know the challenge that we faced. And those people voted Labour Party. Those other people voted the PDP in certain areas, because they had certain questions about either the performance of the governor in that area or the performance of the legislator in that area, or what they thought that our performance as federal government were not measurable. And so they voted. But by God's grace, all the votes that were counted for APC counted, and there were more. And our President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was declared the winner. The proper vote that were credited to the PDP were credited, and the ones for the Labour Party were credited. And so that election really showed that votes and voting count in election in Nigeria. And when you vote, it will be counted.
Very good point that you've raised there. Now,
Yes.
he also described electoral manipulation as one of the biggest threats to democracy in Africa. From your experience, how prevalent is this electoral manipulation in our electoral process? And in terms of reforms to ensure that citizen votes count and the people's will prevails in elections, what are some of the issues that you can advise on?
I didn't get that clearly, please.
Okay, so I was speaking to...
I didn't get that clearly, ma'am.
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you clearly.
Okay, so I said that the former president also described electoral... He also described electoral manipulation as one of the biggest threats to democracy in Africa. Now, of course, from your experience, you can agree that this is very prevalent in our electoral process. And we keep talking about reforms that are necessary to ensure that citizen votes count and the people's will prevails in election. But how realistic is this? Considering what he did say in this class, we've listened to lectures, and he's not just given lectures, he's written books about these issues as well. But how do we move from a point where these issues no longer become thoughts and prayers, but become our reality in the Nigerian electoral space?
Yeah, let me say that former President Goodluck Jonathan is an authority and is a moral compass on electoral credibility. And what he says about election should be taken seriously. Let me give him credit that he honored God because God honored him. And so he can now speak credibly, and we believe him. God honored him by making him of the Umpadek, took him to deputy governor, took him to governor of the state miraculously, made him vice president of the country miraculously, made him acting president of the country miraculously. I know what we went through when he couldn't work. Made him acting president, made him president of the country, and gave him another opportunity to get elected. So God satisfied him because God wanted to place him at a time when Nigeria faced the hardest situation, and he honored God and honored Nigeria. When he said that my ambition is not worth the blood of any Nigerian, I give him my honor. And I also say that he is an authority to speak about manipulation in election in Nigeria. But I want to assure him and assure Nigerians that manipulation in elections no more happens in Nigeria. It doesn't happen. Since Jonathan, who had the power as a sitting president, with his people prepared to do anything, he said no. He picked his phone and called President Buhari, then candidate, and congratulated him. Now, Nigerian situation has been so perfect and perfected, and we're not likely to have any situation of electoral manipulation. I want to say that we have many cases in this country where persons who've been involved in who are alleged to have been involved in electoral manipulation have been tried, convicted, either by the High Court of the State, High Court of the Federal High Court, and so on, and sometimes appeal here and there. But in Africa, we still have that situation. I don't know what's going to happen in the Cameroons. I love the situation the family seems to take in the Cameroons. I get challenged by what happens in certain countries in East Africa, Central Africa, and the kind of things that are happening in the Sahel region. And I get worried about what's happening in the electoral process in the Sahel region. Now, but in Nigeria, in West Africa, I want to say that I think we seem to have overcome that quest for electoral manipulation. And I want to say that when you want to have electoral non-manipulation, bring out your best. Let each of the political parties get organized. Obey the law as the law says. Bring out their best candidate by the best process allowed by law, and then field them and let people will vote. Nigerian electorates are very, very active, matured, and are very jealous of their vote. Right now, where we are now, at somewhere, the Nigerian House of Representatives is holding the final and the national public hearing, where they are hearing on the electoral process, the Electoral Act, some of the aspects that they are expecting should be elevated into the Constitution and not just in the Electoral Act. And all these are being considered. And at the consultants level, we considered that, yes, there are matters that should be in the electoral law, but some of them should just be in a law. You should not go into the Constitution, because if everything that ought to be law had to be in the Constitution, then the Constitution would be extremely too bulky. So Nigerians should be very, very confident that they're going to have the best electoral practice in the next election, and even in the election that is coming in Anambra. You can see the actions that His Excellency President Tinubu is taking to give all the parties a level playing field. The action that Mahmoud, the chairman of INEC, is taking, and making sure that none of the parties, is given advantage over the other, and has prepared the citizens for voting. So we're not going to have electoral manipulation. If there's going to be any manipulation, like in Anambra, it is the candidates and their words which have gone lower than the standard of Nigeria, that the standard of the civilization. It is those words that will anger the citizens of Nigeria and manipulate their hearts in voting against persons whom they would actually have voted for, because their words and actions have gone below. So this is not the kind of manipulation we're talking about.
Okay, I would like you to juxtapose that, lovely explanation that you just gave against the realities. Number one, the by-elections that we recently just saw, this was not just reported. There were different forms of manipulation that were alleged, from wads of cash being found in specific people's possessions, to incidences of security fallouts happening. You are speaking to a very utopian world, whereas in Nigeria, the reality of electoral manipulation remains such a critical issue. So much of a critical issue that even internationally, we've seen cases that have happened where it has been cited as issues that can even be likened to terrorism. We saw that case happen in Canada, where a former political party, he was a member of a political party, both ABC and PDP, was trying to seek asylum, and he wasn't granted for that reason. Not to say that that is our reality, but you cannot take away the fact that issues around electoral manipulation exist. So when you say 2027 will be completely peaceful, what are you resting that on? And how do you rationalize what you said against the backdrop of just the by-elections that were just concluded?
Well, I rationalize my submissions on the basis of the gradual process and the gradual progression of electoral perfection. The kind of elections we had in 1991, which birthed 1992, 1993, which the NRC SDP, which produced the Abiola, was a perfect election. And after that, we had the election in 1998, which were cancelled between UNCP and GDM and the rest of the parties. We were cancelled on the demise of...
If I may just point out what you've just said. You've just spoken about June 12th being a perfect election, but what happened after? That is the crux of the conversation we're having now. What happened after that perfect election?
Everybody knows what happened after. And the President Buhari's tenure and current President Tinubu's tenure had validated and honored all the persons who were involved.
So would you describe these two elections as perfect elections? Would you describe the two terms that President Muhammadu Buhari had, both elections, would you describe them as perfect elections? And would you describe President Tinubu's election as well as perfect elections?
I will definitely describe those as perfect elections. By God's grace, I can state that I am one of the very few people who have contested the highest number of elections in this country. I'm one of the very few who've contested the highest number of elections. So I have the the theory, I have the practice, I have the participation, and I know how you arrange logistics and what can go wrong in any failed election. Now, the election of President Buhari was managed by President Jonathan, and it was a very perfect election. And President Jonathan was a sitting president who is now a model to the whole world.
Yes. What do you? I'm glad that you brought that in.
What is a perfect election?
Yes.
A perfect election is an election where there is freedom to go and vote. The electoral management bodies are honest. There is freedom to vote, and all the candidates have emerged by due process, and all the political parties are given a fair and equitable level playing field, and the elections are counted, and the votes count at the end. These are perfect elections, and it is recorded in accordance with what is recorded. I don't want us to take the hype. I know people are going to abuse me, and I'm going to take it. The hype that the Labour Party brought at that time, that Labour Party won that election. With which record? I think the Labour Party in this country started the AI-generated matters in this country, hyped it, what everybody now knows and is practicing.
Are you saying the virality, just before we let you go, are you saying the viral nature that we saw with Labour Party was AI-generated?
The virality of their activism, yes.
Was AI-generated?
They nearly fooled Nigerians.
Wow.
They nearly got everybody, but they were on ground. But I want to say that those who want to win election should study, honor, and practice.
On that note, Senator,
the activism of the Labour Party in the 2023 election, because they were everybody. They were everywhere.
Okay.
Right and wrong. They were everywhere and more active than all other political parties. I honor them.
Okay. Well, that's okay. I think I would just to clarify what you're saying. Did you say that the activities were AI generated and you're celebrating that, or the activities were real and you're celebrating the activism of the supporters of Labour Party? What exactly did you speak to?
I'm celebrating the activism and ingenuity of the supporters of the Labour Party. They almost deceived Nigerians
with AI generated
as to the real result of this thing. Let me drop that one.
Okay,
so that we don't go too far.
Because they were AI generated.
But they taught Nigerians a lesson.
Okay.
But they taught Nigerians a lesson.
That's understood. Thank you so much for your time on Newsday today. We are very intrigued by your thoughts, and we appreciate that.